There's only one question mark left to turn into an exclamation. Only one more ending to get. And tonight, we're going to get it. I thought it might be appropriate to watch the opening cinematic. Why do I know these things? Now it is time. Let our game begin. And let it come to an end. Full disclosure, I'm probably going to be doing this in a couple of sittings. You'll be here the whole time, microphone, and you'll see it all in one place. Because I do want to try to get as many of the good dialogue parts as I can. Even knowing that will make this take forever. I still don't have an explanation for that. Why did a giant Titanic ship explode? A loud noise startled Junpei awake, and his eyes snapped open. And then the prologue happened. I'm waking up in a bunk. I think. And I'm trapped in here. And I know what to do. Nobody can help me. Nobody can hear me. I don't know where I am. I'm gonna do this part first so I can get it out of the GB way. Small red key, and I look at myself in the face. I remember when I was living in my hilariously cheap apartment. I came home from college. Someone gassed me. I've been chosen to play a game where I'll put my life on the line. I wonder if I just remember it. That would be cool. I don't remember it. 7:45. 0263. Got that right for the first time. For the first time. You found it. Then we escape. And the water chases us out. C deck, B deck, 7 people. Silver, lion, pink hair, prince, mountain, and bird's nest. We try to open the doors. We can't open them. We don't understand them. Even the mountain of a man can't open the locked door. But then, the 9th person came down the stairs, and I know her. Why is she here? 0 explains the game. It tells us we all have the rules. We've been taught how to use the numbered doors. A digital route. Spend some time explaining ourselves and looking around and figuring out the boundaries of our maze. We see that there are doors. We see that there are keyholes marked with astrological signs. What are we going to do? Well, we have to figure out a way to talk to each other and talk about each other. Ace, Snake, Santa, Clover, June, 7, Lotus. But then there's a 9th person. What are we going to call you? I don't care what you call me, because I'm leaving. He already knew how the doors worked. You remember why? He didn't think that he would have a problem going through alone. You remember why? He lied to me. Remember who lied? Anyone. We open the door, and it's gross. But as long as we don't walk through, we're fine. But now that the door was opened, June falls down with a fever. And now it's been an entire hour. Now we have 8 hours left. Snake knows more about the rules. She'll bless you and only you with information for the red and the dead. So only Snake, in a way that only Snake could read, was given information about how to deactivate the explosion. Wait, hang on. Seven's story didn't have the details because he doesn't have his memory. 8-3, Lotus, Santa, June, and Junpei. We can go into door 4. I'm glad that I decided that door 4 would be fine. Okay, we've been well through here before. Doors that won't open. Finally, next to 2 doors that will open, we find it. Yeah. But there's a Mars symbol. We need a Mars key. All right. I am worried about you. This is where June is being really weirdly cagey about how many guys she's dated. The map. Do you think this boat is a replica of the Titanic? Yeah, you know, like a copy of the actual boat. Who on earth would make something like that? Fans? Crazy Titanic fans? No way. Do you even know how much money that would take? No idea. All they gotta do is break even, you know? Break even? Yeah, they could use it as a cruise ship. Do you believe in that sort of thing? You know, curses and stuff? Gotta see it. Sorry, but I can't really say I believe in that kind of stuff. Tact was not one of Junpei's many better qualities. What about you? No, I guess that's kind of a dumb question. Yes, I do believe in curses. In fact, I think it was a curse that sunk the Titanic. What? A curse sank the Titanic. The curse of the Egyptian mummy. Junpei couldn't understand how June had maintained a straight face to say that. Supposedly, the Titanic carried the mummy of the priestess Amun-Ra, which was stolen from a pyramid. And they say that the mummy had a history. Everyone involved with it died mysterious deaths. Come on, I'm sure you've heard of it before. Those who open the coffin will be forever cursed. Haven't you ever heard that? So you're saying the Titanic sunk because of that curse? That's right. June's eyes had lit up with excitement like a child with a new toy. That's stupid. I don't buy it. It's true. How can you be so sure? That mummy wasn't just a normal mummy. It was really mysterious. Totally unbelievable. What's so unbelievable about it? Well, supposedly she was really pretty. Pretty? Yes. But she was a mummy. That's right. She wasn't all shriveled up or rotten or anything. She looked just like she was alive. Oh, I get it. It's that thing, I don't remember the name, where your body turns into some kind of wax. If a dead body is put in the right sort of environment, the fat in it turns into something kind of like candle wax, right? And yes, saponification, but that's not what it was. Huh? That's not it. She wasn't wax. Then what is it? They say that she was frozen. What? Frozen. That's right. The whole body was frozen solid. You know how a human body is more than 60% water? Well, all of that water was frozen. The story says that from the time of its discovery, all the way through to when it got put on the Titanic, and even though it was carried through the desert, her body never melted. June and Junpei talked a little more and then went back to their investigation. But even as they did, his mind went back to what she'd told him. Ice that wouldn't melt, even in the desert. Could such a thing really exist? No, even if it did, it wouldn't really be ice anymore, would it? The more he thought about it, the more his head hurt. Like he'd eaten ice cream too fast. And he needed to get back to the investigation. Wait. Nope, nothing here. Right? No, just some pervy comment if I click the pillows. I'm gonna go over there. You're gonna try to stop me weirdly, but you're not gonna. Candle went out, but it's not just the candle, is it? Display case. Take a look. Pull that shit open. Hey Junpei, you got a minute? Santa had shown up out of nowhere and gave Junpei no small start. Here, take this. Santa pulled something out of his pocket. It looked like a bookmark. It had a 4-leaf clover in it. What is this? I found it in between some of the cushions on the sofa. Pretty sure it ain't gonna be any help to us, but figured we might as well hang on to it anyway. Then why don't you hold on to it? Santa gave him a wry smile. You know what I hate most in the world? I got 4 things. Hope, faith, love, and luck. Hope, faith, love, and luck. Damn straight. And you hate these things? Yeah, you got a problem with that? Not really, but Junpei tried to figure out how best to phrase what he wanted to say. What does a bookmark have to do with any of that? Santa scratched the back of his ear and looked awkward. Well, see, each leaf on the 4-leaf clover has a meaning to it, okay? And that meaning is pretty much those 4 words. It's like a flower language. Well, I guess it's not a flower, is it? So a leaf language, I guess. Yeah, you could call them leaf words. Leaf words. Junpei looked at the bookmark. Hope, faith, love, and luck. So, yeah, I want you to take it, okay? Just touching it gives me the creeps. Take the damn thing, alright? Santa pretended to shiver with disgust and shoved the bookmark into Junpei's confused hands. Junpei took it. After all, why shouldn't he? Alright, sure, I'll take it. He shoved the thing into his pocket and gave Santa a last confused look. Phew, man, I feel a lot better now. That thing was a real pain, you know? You really hate those 4 words that much? Yeah, well, they can all betray you, you know? Hope, faith, love, even your destiny. What had happened to Santa, Junpei wondered. How had he become such a bitter person? For a moment, they looked at each other. Well, that's not my only reason. What? That's not the only reason I hate the 4-leaf clover. I just can't bring myself to like the number 4. What, worried about the 4 horsemen? Nah. Come on, man, that's just silly. Maybe back in the Dark Ages that kind of crap scared people, but this is the 21st century, and I'm a 21st century guy. Then why do you hate 4 so much? Because it's a half-ass number. Not the best or the worst. That's why. What? 9 is a way better number. So what if it's last place, right? At least it's not some lame-ass middle number. Santa's explanation made no sense. Junpei was even more confused than before. You play? Play. You mean like gambling? Yeah, of course. What else would I mean? In Baccarat, the best possible hand total's 9. They call it Le Grand. But the lowest, most worthless cards, the zeros, they call Monkey. Just like the guy in charge of this game, huh? Zero's a monkey. Santa blinked, utterly stunned. Then he began to laugh. Oh man, you're totally right. The guy who trapped us in here sure is one hell of a monkey. That was when Lotus spoke up. You know, if you think about it, the nonnery game is really a lot like Baccarat. Apparently she'd been listening. Of course, it doesn't use any of that stupid digital root junk. You just drop the tens digit and that's it. Still, it does have the same idea of your final number needing to be a single digit. Yeah, I guess you got a point. And in both games, whoever has 9 wins. The person who makes 9 wins. Did you forget already? Don't you remember what 0 said? The exit is hidden, but it is there. Seek the exit, seek the door that carries a 9. So if we want to get off this boat, we have to make a team whose numbers have the digital root of 9. And only the people in that team are going to make it out alive. Of course. That's why it's called the nonnery game. What? Huh? You don't know? Nonnery means something derived from 9, or base 9. It's derived from the Latin prefix nona, which means 9. While we're at it, the prefix for 1 is uni. You know, like the unicorn. The horse with 1 horn. 2 is bi, like binary, and binary means composed of 2 parts. 3 is tri, I'm sure you've heard that one plenty. Like trio, triple, and triangle. You get the idea. After that, you have quart, quinty, sext, septim, and so on. And of course, the prefix for 8 is octo, like octopus. It's called that because it has 8 legs. Get it? I see. So then, nona means 9. Lotus nodded. So how many of us are trapped on this ship? That'd be 9. And what are the bracelet numbers we have? They go from 1 to 9. And our time limit? How many hours did we have? 0 said 9 hours. And finally, to get out of this ship, we need to find the door with a 9 that's hidden somewhere. By making a team with the digital root of 9. Lotus nodded again. And there you have it. The number 9 is everywhere in this game. He's got a real theme of 9s for this whole thing. No wonder it's called the nonnery game. Somewhere far away, Junpei heard the creak of stressed metal. Fifth from the top, third from the right. Would you chill out, Santa? Yeah, I want to go be in the room with another person. Why don't we go back to the living room? Oh, June, you had to make it so awkward. Wait, do I not have it? There we go. Yes, I did it. Picture complete, and the door goes open. And for a blessed moment, I don't care about the picture anymore. What's the deal with this picture anyway? Lotus looked at the picture and paused. I think I've seen this picture before. Where? In a book. There's a British biochemist named Sheldrake. He has a rather interesting theory. I saw this picture in his book. What's this interesting theory? Morphogenetic field, which relies on the theory of morphic resonance. Man, I can't deal with this. Just listening to you talk about it is giving me a headache. Santa put his hands on his head as though he were in great pain. Lotus merely arched an eyebrow in his direction and continued. It's not a difficult concept to grasp. In essence, he states that the shapes of living organisms and their behavioral patterns are transmitted through a field not visible to the eye. What part of that isn't difficult exactly? Lotus did not look pleased. Alright, how about this? Theory of the telepathic mechanism. Telepathic mechanism? Telepathy? Yes, telepathy. Well, perhaps not exactly telepathy, but it is close enough for a simple approximation. Santa suddenly burst into laughter. Are you serious? Telepathy? Who do you think we are, kids from the 70s? I can't believe someone would actually do serious research on something like that. Yes, I agree. Lotus's response was surprisingly curt. Junpei had expected at least some conflict. I read the book, but I can hardly say I understood it. I'm in no position to defend or condemn anything it said. It was probably just someone latching onto a statistical outlier from some study and turning it into a ridiculous theory. There's no scientific merit to any of it, I'm sure, but even so, Anyway, I saw a picture like that one in his book. Lotus indicated the picture they'd all been looking at. After a moment, she walked up to the strange picture, examined it, and then spoke. Hey, what do you think this picture looks like? Santa answered first. What do you mean? Isn't it just like abstract or something like that? It's just black and white scribbles. There's no meaning there. That's it. What about you, Junpei? Does it look like anything to you? By now, I've seen the dog so many times that I literally can't see anything else. Certainly can't see a man's face. None of these things. That's a dog. Maybe a dog. So you got the head here, and these are the front paws, and these are the back paws. Junpei traced the black contours. See? Oh, I see it. Guess you got a point. Santa, despite his constant aloofness, was clearly impressed. Junpei glanced over at Lotus. She looked stunned. How did you know? You're right. I didn't think you would have been able to guess that. For a brief moment, Junpei felt a swell of pride. So, now we know what it's a picture of, but I don't see how that helps us. Lotus nodded and began to speak. A TV show from Great Britain did an experiment once. They took two similar pictures. Both of them were difficult to identify initially, but once you'd figured out the answer, you couldn't see it as anything else. The first picture was a woman wearing a hat. The other one, well, to make it easier, let's just say it was this picture of a dog. So, their experiment. First, they sent the pictures to other parts of the world where British radio and television didn't reach. To Ireland, the US, Africa, Europe. Then in each country, they gathered a number of test subjects. All in all, there were roughly 1,000 people. Those 1,000 people were shown the two pictures and asked, "What does this picture look like to you?" The results in and of themselves were not terribly interesting. 9.2% of the people saw the lady. 3.9% saw the dog. Then, 2 days later, they broadcast a new show. During the 30-minute show, they broadcast the dog picture and its solution. The audience was estimated to be 200,000 people. After the broadcast, it could be assumed that the number of people who knew the solution to the dog picture now totaled over 200,000 people. After another 2 days had passed, they gathered a number of research subjects from areas where British TV and radio did not exist. This time, they were only able to find a sample of roughly 850 people. Naturally, none of them were people who had participated in the first test. They were, however, given the same test and the same two pictures. The results were shocking. 10% of the people saw the lady in the lady picture. The previous test had been 9.2 success rate. The change was not statistically significant. The dog picture, however, produced a very different result. The percentage of people able to successfully find the dog grew from 3.9 to 6.8, a significant increase. So do you understand? Do you realize the significance of this experiment? There was no way the second group could have seen the picture. They lived far away from Britain. They couldn't have seen it. But even so, it was only the success rate for the dog picture that went up. Why? How did that happen? What does it mean? Lotus looked back and forth from Junpei to Santa and back again. Normally calm and collected, she looked now as though she were very nearly possessed, and there was something manic about her manner. Santa took an involuntary step backward. Junpei didn't budge and stared straight back into Lotus's eyes. Does this have something to do with that field or whatever it was you were talking about? A field not visible to the eye. So if more people know the answer, then that information will pass through the field. Psych! Her manner suddenly shifted and Lotus smiled broadly at Junpei and Santa. She waved her hand dismissively, doing her best to laugh the whole confrontation off. Oh, I was just kidding. You really shouldn't take me seriously. Well, I mean, the things I just told you about are true. They really did happen. But the results of that experiment really aren't anything to go by. They could have easily falsified them. In the end, I'm sure they were just in it for the ratings. They are a TV station after all. At last, it seemed that Santa had gained control of his composure. Right. Man, I gotta admit, you had me there for a minute. I really thought you were serious. Of course not. Like I told you before, I'm sure it's all just pseudoscience. Okay, right. Santa and Lotus laughed and gave one another jovial claps on the shoulder. Junpei, however, didn't feel so much like laughing. Something felt wrong, unclear. All right, enough nonsense. We've got the key. Let's get out of here. Word. Lotus and Santa walked away from the picture, but Junpei stayed, staring at the picture of the dog. A field not visible to the naked eye. Morphogenetic field. The more he thought about it, the more his head hurt. Come on, let's go. You found it. They stepped through the door to find themselves in a wide. Oh, well, no. So it's a kitchen. Figured out the map. And we figured out that if we can come out the other side, we'll be on the other side of the grate. Rusty knife. I won't be able to use it like this. It's futile. Futile. You know, a waste. Useless. Pointless. Oh, any particular reason you wanted to bring that up? Oh, no reason, really. I was just thinking about futility. Junpei tried rephrasing his question. Why were you thinking about futility? At last, she answered. Well, it has something to do with the Titanic. The Titanic? Yep. Have you ever heard the story that the sinking of the Titanic was predicted? Yes, I have, from you before. Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. There was a novel that had a bunch of stuff in it that described the sinking of the Titanic before it actually sank. Yeah, that's the one. The title of the novel is Futility. It was written 14 years before the Titanic sank. But, I know. I mean, I didn't know the name of the book, but the story was the same, right? It was just like what happened on the Titanic. Yeah. Well, I heard it was all a hoax. A hoax? I heard that the stuff that matched up to the Titanic so well was actually added after it sank. Apparently the only thing that was the same originally was that a boat ran into an iceberg and sank. But the novel was published in 1894, 14 years before the accident. Like I said, that was the first print of the book. 14 years later, the author heard about what happened on the Titanic. He figured that it was just chance, you know? He just went back and changed some stuff in his novel so that it matched the Titanic exactly. Surprised by Junpei's response, June seemed rather taken aback. Really? Really? There's no such thing as premonitions or any of that stuff. For a moment, June looked very unhappy. More so than Junpei thought was normal for such a discussion. But it lasted only a moment. With no apparent reason, she suddenly looked up at him, alarmed. But, that wasn't the only book that predicted the Titanic sinking. It wasn't? Yup. There were 2 other similar stories written by a man named William Thomas Stead. Both of them before the accident, one in 1886 and one in 1892. Stead wrote 2 stories that had striking similarities to the Titanic disaster. In one, 2 ships collided and many of the passengers died because there weren't enough lifeboats. Okay. A brief aside. I have to go back and revise my ongoing hilarious confusion with why in the middle of this disaster you would half remember some facts that you read about before, but I just remembered that both of these characters, Junpei and June, are supposed to be in college and therefore are 19. And when I was 19, I was absolutely doing this shit all of the time. Just be like, oh hey, I don't care what we're talking about now, but did you hear about this thing from before? So, suspension of disbelief suspended. In the other story about the Titanic, a ship collided with an iceberg and sank. I don't know. I mean, I'll give you that it seems a little weird, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't too uncommon for ships to hit icebergs back in the day, or even other ships. Right. I knew you'd say that. Huh? But what if Stead had some sort of special powers? To be more specific, what if he had the ability to do automatic writing? What? Automatic writing? Wait, are you talking about that thing where someone says they're possessed by a spirit, and then they write a bunch of stuff without knowing what they're writing? Yes. What do you mean, yes? That stuff's a load of bull. Okay, so let's say, hypothetically, that automatic writing isn't a total load. These guys still couldn't have predicted the sinking of the Titanic. When this Stead dude wrote his thing, nobody had died on the Titanic yet. So if automatic writing is about being possessed by spirits of dead people, who the hell possessed him so he could write that stuff? That's not it. What's not it? Stead wasn't possessed by a spirit. He was doing the possessing. What are you smoking? William Thomas Stead was a passenger on the Titanic. He just wrote down what he saw with his own eyes, 20 years before it happened. Junpei decided it was probably best to say nothing. What June was saying was insane and utterly absurd. If he tried to take what she was saying seriously, he'd go mad. Junpei smiled uncomfortably. Well, why don't we talk about this some other time, okay? Huh? But her voice trailed off and she glanced at the floor, troubled. Junpei tapped June gently on the shoulder and awkwardly reached around her to pick up the knife from the box. Now I have a knife. Hey, there's something behind the cheese. I am wheeling in the cheese. This bolt is rusted in place, but if I put some oil on it... Gotcha, bitch. Grab this first. And what the hell? Now I just have a regular knife. But it's not that simple, kids. In real life, do. Here we go, walking into a freezer. Lotus doesn't want to come in because she's wearing almost no clothes, and then the door shuts and it instantly freezes closed. What are we gonna do now? I'm just gonna look around and pick up everything I can find. A chunk of pork. Junpei picked up the dry ice with his sleeves to avoid burning himself. Carbon dioxide sublimation point is negative 109 degrees. Any warmer than that and it'll turn into gas. Any lower and it becomes a solid. Junpei looked at her dumbfounded. How do you know that? Despite my looks, I'm the queen... I'm the clean... queen of random knowledge. Looks bad to mess up when you're showing off. Oh, you're so cold your mouth's going numb? Yes. That's right. You're just doing that on purpose, aren't you? June giggled and did her best to hide her guilt. At least she was feeling good enough to joke around. I wonder why it doesn't turn into a liquid first. He wanted out of the freezer now. How the hell would I know? And how the hell is that going to help us get out of here? We don't have time for this crap. Actually, what I'm gonna do... It's about pressure. And there is a kind of ice that's interesting, that won't melt until it's 96 degrees. Ice 9, a kind of ice that will crystallize. Upon a time, glycerin wouldn't crystallize until suddenly it did. Like when people learned about, like when your brain can see the picture of the dog, and suddenly thousands of people can see the dog. Alright. That's really interesting, Jeremy, but I have to go look at my vagina with a hand mirror now. Get the hell out of here. Yeah. Her trapping us in there wouldn't have helped her at all. Especially because, and she didn't even know this, unless she already knew the answer, she wasn't getting out of here without us. P + 10 + F. I should have tried something. Oh well. I'll try it next time, but a number of the times on these things you're doing clues so that you can get a password, and then once you have the password you can just do it. I wonder what happens if you come in knowing the password even though you haven't done the thing. I step down into the hallway. We know where we are. We're gonna try to figure out when we're gonna meet up with the other four, but we think that they already came this way and opened that gate. Lotus had taken a hold of Junpei's hair. Such violence. Junpei began to wonder if she was not the devil itself. Wonder if... Oh. Wait, hang on. 5 + 4. The door... Okay, I'm not going into that door this time. For reasons that I don't want to tell you about, microphone. Okay, here we go. Now a bunch of things happen. We're showing up here. None of the reds work. Zero sucks at maintenance. That can't be possible. They were sabotaged. And they got out, they opened that grate, and they followed the voices to find us here. Snake is still here. We're all gonna split up. What happened to the gigantic? What do you mean your memory isn't back? I guess I didn't tell you, huh? Told the rest of them before we ran into you on the stairs. Told them I couldn't remember a damn thing from before I woke up. Almost as if to save Junpei from further embarrassment. We have 6 hours left. We need to figure out where to find the parts to open the doors. But none of us find them. And in fact, we come back and we don't find all of us here. We can't find Snake. Clover knows he wouldn't get lost. I kind of want to look at everyone and see just what happened. Casino. Lois is looking for Snake. Care to hear it? What do you have to say? I don't like to beat around the bush, so I'll get right to it. Why don't we team up? 5 and 6 and 8 is 19. 1 and 9 is 10. We can go through a 1 door. What, isn't that easy? 7. She was right. If they added 7, then the 4 of them could go through the number 8 door. But what about the other 4? Why don't you add them up? The digital route for those 4 would be 1. That's right. And you know the number 1 door isn't in the big hospital, right? Of course I know that. You saying you'd leave them behind? Of course not. We'll get out and then we'll come back to rescue them. Okay. All the rooms. For the people we can talk to. What's Ace up to? Do you think Clover and Snake are really siblings? They don't look alike at all. There are a great many siblings who don't look alike. We've had this conversation. Why did I say this? We've already been up there. We talked about this. Let me see. Clover. You alright? Look, I know you're really worried, but I said, leave me alone. Suddenly she was screaming. Tells us to piss off. We agree. Let's go back. Santa was doing something. Checking all the reds. Someone put it back in. Who do you think fixed this thing for us? Maybe Snake? Seems like it would have to be Snake, wouldn't it? Maybe he got back here before any of us. He found the parts somewhere, put them back, and then went through one of the numbered doors. No, that's not possible. You have to authenticate with at least 3 people or the red won't open the door. There's no way a single person could get through there by themselves. Yeah, I guess you're right. It was a stupid mistake and Junpei knew it. How had he made such a foolish miscalculation? How had Santa noticed it so quickly? Perhaps he just wasn't as clever as he used to be. Junpei shook his head sadly. So in other words, one of us is the person who fixed the red. Bingo. We have a winner. But if that's true, then the person who did it doesn't want the rest of us to know they fixed the red. Yeah. But why? No idea. Maybe if they come clean on that, it means we'd find out something else. Something bad. Something bad. Dunno. But whatever it is, it's gotta be worth hiding. Okay. Where would they go next? We would stop searching because he's not in any of these places. We have to keep moving forward. We can split into 2 teams. 3 and 3. And we can go through door 7 or door 8. Clover is deeply sad. Ace doses himself with Soparil. Everyone else wants to know where they want to go. And I want to go to door 7. 3 and 4, and 7 and 8 can never go through the same door. You get it now? Oh no. You're saying we aren't going to see each other again for a long time. Junpei felt just as June did. He wanted to be at her side through whatever trials they were preparing to face. But we have to split up. Be technically adults. Their eyes met, nodded. Farewell took almost 1.5 seconds. Time to go. Time to find this shit. These 3. Clover's cheering up by giving 7 shit. Okay, here we go. Operating room. Oh boy. It's a corpse. Alright. Time to find everything. Gross. Hey, Junpei, there's a slit in this thing. Ah, but I can't get it out yet. Maybe if I have a scalpel? Oof. Cool. It's unlocked. Salt, huh? Iron is 1, salt is 2, water is 3, carbon dioxide, as we recall. CO2. Carbon dioxide is also 3. Ammonia is 4. You think we should go back? Yeah, I think that's probably best. Clover nodded and left. Junpei was about to follow her when he realized that Seven wasn't following suit. Hey Seven, what's up? Oh, well... He looked up at Junpei distractedly and then back down at the brown bottle he held cupped in his large hands. What's that? In response, Seven tossed the bottle gently to Junpei. He caught it and twisted it around to read the label. Ethylenediamine tartrate. EDT. It's tartaric ethylene diamine. What kind of medicine is that? It's not medicine. I think it's an industrial strength detergent. Why would they have something like that here? Well, probably to clean stuff up. Clean what up? Fuck if I know. Still, looks like it's cleaned my brain up. Junpei looked up from the bottle. You remember something? Seven nodded slowly and spoke. Well, I remember a story about EDT. It happened about 50 years ago. There was this factory somewhere in America, making big old EDT crystals. They were making it to sell as industrial strength cleaner like I told you before. But a year after the factory started up... the apostrophe tells me it's still his voice. Something strange started happening with the crystals as they were building. Water molecules started attaching themselves to the EDT crystals. This made them into a sort of mutation of the original crystals called a hydrate. Once the crystal turns into a hydrate, though, it's useless as a cleaner. The factory had to just dump the crystals. As a hydrate, they were useless. But it didn't end there. After that day, the same thing started happening in EDT factories everywhere, even ones nowhere near that first American factory. They'd been making crystals the same way, with the same materials and the same equipment and environment, but now, all of a sudden, every single crystal they formed turned into a hydrate. In fact, ever since that day, no factory anywhere has been able to make a pure EDT crystal. Even in EDT research done years before, they'd never gotten a hydrate. But after it happened at the first factory, it just spread. It was like, man, how do you say it? Like the molecules were communicating with one another, transmitting information in a way humans couldn't perceive. This phenomena spread throughout the world. Am I right? Junpei looked up at Seven with half a smirk. Seven stared at him dumbfounded. Yeah, that's it exactly. But how did you know? I heard another story kind of like that one. When? In the freezer. What? The freezer? Junpei told Seven the story he'd heard from June in the freezer in the kitchen. How one day, glycerin began to crystallize, and the story of ice that wouldn't melt at room temperature. When Junpei was done, Seven looked thoughtful and absent-mindedly rubbed the scar on his chin. Ice that doesn't melt at room temperature, huh? That sound familiar? Yeah, hold up. I feel like I can remember something. It's right there. Seven squinted. His eyes stared off into space as if he were trying desperately to focus on something far away. Do you know about Ice 9? Ice 9? Ice 9, Ice 9. Ice, ice, ice. Suddenly, Seven's eyes shot open. That's it! I remember now! That woman, she's on this boat! That woman? Alice! Who's Alice? Come on, the woman who won't melt at room temperature! It became clear to Seven that Junpei had no idea what he was talking about. He ran his hand across his face and took a deep breath. You know how the Titanic sank on April 15th, 1912, right? Sure, we all do. More than 1,500 people died. Worst maritime accident in history. What about it? Did you hear about the boat that was sent to collect the dead bodies? I think that was the RMS Carpathia, right? It was a cruise liner, just like the Titanic. No, that was the ship that picked up the survivors. The ship that collected the dead bodies was the CS Mackay Bennett. The Mackay Bennett showed up on April 17th, 2 days after the accident. It set out from Halifax, a port in Canada, and recovered 306 bodies. The Atlantic that far north was really cold. It would have to be, for there to be icebergs and stuff. Anyway, the bodies they pulled out of the water were frozen solid. This isn't a very nice story. So what happened next? Well, they say the Mackay Bennett recovered something more than just dead bodies. There were various bits of stuff floating around in the water. Things the drowned had carried with them, or stuff dislodged as the ship sank. One of the things they found was a coffin. A coffin? Yeah, a wooden one. The craftsman who made it must have been pretty skilled. It wasn't just a wooden coffin, it was all wood. There were no nails or reinforcements, and there were no gaps in the wood anywhere. It was airtight. The crew got pretty curious about what might be inside it and opened it up. They had to get a wedge and hammer it open. It was so well made. Inside, they found a woman. I guess you could say they found the dead body of a woman. Her hair was thick and black, and her skin was deep brown and didn't show any signs of age or decomposition. They say that she looked gorgeous, like a goddess. She was obviously dead, but everyone who looked at her said she just looked like she was sleeping. Her skin was so lifelike, she looked like she might wake up any minute. She didn't, though. Like the rest of the bodies they found, she was frozen solid. Eventually, the Mackay Bennett finished the search and returned to Halifax. The 306 bodies were unloaded and taken ashore. However, it was warm enough that they began to melt. They say that the stink was horrible. There was one body that didn't thaw. The girl in the coffin. That's right. Everybody thought for sure that she'd melt and start to rot like the rest of them eventually. But weeks passed and nothing happened. Then a month had passed and another, and it was summer and she was still frozen solid. After a while, people started to say she was some sort of miracle. Rumors about the girl started to spread, and people came to visit Halifax from all over. After a while, people started to call her All Ice. Alice. Of course, those rumors didn't last long. Why? Well, she up and disappeared. One day Alice was there, next day she wasn't. They say someone snuck into where they were keeping her and stole the body. With the body gone, the rumors followed pretty quickly, and after a while no one remembered her. You might be able to find something about her if you could find a newspaper from back then, but that's about it. Wait, you just said she was on this boat. Yeah, I did. Alice has got to be somewhere on this ship. Why the hell would you say something like that? 'Cause I know. And just what is it you know? What happened to Alice after she was stolen? Junpei gulped. Alright, tell me, what happened to Alice? Seven nodded slowly and took on the look of a man recalling something long buried. Well, around that time, the word was that there was a thriving black market in New York. I mean, I'm sure there still is, but this was special. All millionaires from all over the world. I've heard that Alice went up for auction there. The person who won the auction was Lord Dashiell Gordain. You've heard that name before, right? Sir Gordain? Isn't he the guy who bought the Gigantic, the Titanic's sister ship? Yeah, that's him. Although I guess he hadn't done that yet. What do you mean? Gordain bought Alice in 1912. Then, 4 years later, in 1916, he bought the Gigantic. And he hid Alice somewhere on the Gigantic, but nobody knows where. He died in 1931, and apparently he died without ever telling anyone where Alice was hidden. However, what? Well, he did have one close friend who asked him, "Where is Alice?" And he said, Alice sleeps in a small chamber past the forest of knowledge beneath the navel of the gigantic. What the hell is that? Some kind of riddle? Your guess is as good as mine. Seven threw his hands up in defeat. So that's it. Whatever you think, I believe it. She's hidden somewhere in the gigantic. In other words, she's hidden somewhere on this ship. Before Junpei could dispute Seven's rather bizarre claim, they heard Clover's voice from the door. She did not sound pleased. Time to get back to escaping the room. But the body never melted. Oh, wait. That's right. He tried to remember what June had told him earlier. It was an Egyptian priestess. Could they be telling me the same story? That would be weird. Oh, wait. Damn it. Probably have done all three at once, but that's not the kind of chance I like. It's fun that you have to swap their entire body. Where'd Clover go? Did you want to come back here and say goodbye to John? Can you hear me? His drilling is rising that... Give her the 4-leaf. Oh yeah. Like Junpei remembered something he'd been given earlier. He reached into his pocket and dug it out. 4-leaf clover. Santa had given it to him in the second-class room. He held it out to Clover. Did you know that each leaf on the 4-leaf clover means something? Hope, faith, love, and luck. Take it. Use it as a good luck charm. He pressed the 4-leaf clover into her hand. Listen to me, Clover. No matter what happens, you can never lose hope. You have to remember what's most important, and that's to have faith and to have love. If you can remember all of those, that'll bring you good luck. Snake, your brother, he's not dead. He's alive somewhere. I'm sure of it. You just gotta believe in that. Clover stared at the 4-leaf clover in her hand. He could see tears start to form at the corners of her eyes. Thank you. Her voice was tiny and broken, and as she spoke, she started to cry. She tried to hide her tears by looking at the floor, but it did little good. She wiped away tears with the baggy arms of her jacket, but more quickly took their place. No matter how she tried, she couldn't stop crying. Her tears made small wet circles on the floor. Thank you, she said it again. Then she looked up at Junpei and seemed to choke down the last of her grief. She did her best to smile. Junpei wiped an errant tear from her cheek with his thumb and gave her the best smile he could manage. Now come on. Seven's waiting for us at the exit. But still she didn't move. Wait, before we go, there's one thing I want to ask you. What's that? What do you think when you hear the word experiment? For a moment, his mind froze. Then he came back to his sentence and realized the word meant nothing to him aside from the dictionary definition. What? Oh, I guess it was just a coincidence then. I mean, that you knew about the four-leaf clover. Look, I'm sorry, I don't want to be a jerk, but you are making less than no sense right now. Oh, no, it's nothing. Just forget about it. Don't give me that. You really think I could just drop this? What is this experiment you were talking about? Clover looked away. The four-leaf clover was still in her hand. She stared at it for a long moment, and then, finally, spoke. You promise not to tell anyone? Cross my heart. Really? Really? I can trust you, right? Of course you can. Clover slipped the four-leaf clover into her pocket. Her eyes still red from crying, she looked up at Junpei. Okay then, I'll tell you what happened on this ship 9 years ago. Wait. On this ship? Yeah, this ship. He was entirely lost. He had 1,000 questions, but it was probably best, he thought, to save them until Clover had finished. It was an experiment. To test for some sort of psychic thing. Something about communicating through these fields that you can't see. Fields that you can't see? He'd heard something like this before. Clover nodded. Like, think about this. She pointed at the operating table. On top of it was a somewhat mismatched medical mannequin whose parts had been swapped with another mannequin. This is John, right? But is he really John? All Junpei could think was, she's finally completely lost it. Isn't this like Locke's sock? Or the ship of Theseus? Junpei grew more confused. He'd never heard of either of those things, although Juri had. You don't know? You haven't heard of these paradoxes? Junpei shook his head. Clover laughed. Okay, well, pay attention then. This is how Locke's socks works. Let's say I've got a pair of socks. They're my favorite socks. One of them gets a hole in it. What would you do if that was your sock, Junpei? Patch it up. Well, I guess I'd patch it up. Get some cloth and close up the hole. But what if another hole opens? I'd add another patch, I suppose. What if another hole opened after that? Another patch, I guess. Well, let's just say you keep adding new patches until eventually the original cloth of the sock is totally gone. Once you get to that point, can you really say they're the same socks you started with? That's tough. Junpei crossed his arms. So that's Locke's socks thing. Yeah. The ship of Theseus is a lot like it. The ship of Theseus. If you keep fixing the damaged parts of a ship, eventually it ends up with none of the parts that it started with. Can you really say that the ship is the ship of Theseus that you started with? And what if you took all the old parts from the first ship and built another one somewhere else? Then which ship is the real ship of Theseus? The one you repaired? Or the one you built with all the original parts? It was an interesting question. Clover could see Junpei was intrigued. Hey, do you think it's the same? What's the same? These guys. Is this John? Or is it Lucy now? Junpei looked at the operating table again. A mannequin full of body parts from a different body. Clover had been right. It was just like Lock's socks and the ship of Theseus. The part of the body that holds a person's identity is the head. Of course, for many hundreds of years, conventional wisdom has held that a man's identity resided in his heart or any number of internal organs. John's head and heart were both his, but apart from that and a single arm, the rest of his body had once been Lucy's. Was that mannequin really John? We're just like these mannequins. She looked at Junpei again. Think about it. The cells in our body change every day. Old ones die and new ones are born. Maybe part of my arm is made of stuff from a fish I ate once. Or maybe part of your right side is made from a cow you ate. You take it a little further, those cows and fishes are made from something else too, right? That's how we're all connected, through fields that can't be seen with the naked eye. The silence was broken by Seven. Hey, what the hell is taking you two so long? Seven's head appeared in the doorway. He was not happy. How long are you gonna make me wait? We don't have time to screw around. Junpei and Clover looked at each other. Clover looked at Junpei as if to say there was more she wanted to tell him. She shook her head. Whatever she had to tell him, she didn't want to tell him in front of Seven. Seven seemed to catch on. Oh? What were you two doing? Was this some sort of secret meeting? No, it wasn't. We were just playing with the mannequins. Huh? Let's go, Junpei. Moving a little bit too fast to be entirely innocent, Clover headed toward the exit. Seven stared after her, then turned to Junpei with an amused expression. Playing with mannequins, huh? Didn't know you were into that kind of thing, Junpei. You're a dick. Junpei dashed past him and traced Clover's path out the door. With a short laugh, Seven followed. They stood looking at the door. Junpei took out the Jupiter key, and we're all set. And we're heading back to Skip Town. You found it. Oh, that's right. Poor Clover, my brother might be dead. We run into the rest of the folks. And then we're going to figure out how that honorary game works. We're going to open it. So each other. We've got all the keys that we've been needing. Got the Earth key, Saturn key, Jupiter key. Door opened. So they're gonna go through the door number 3, and we're gonna open all the locked doors. Why do we come back here? For the reason that there is. Wait a sec. Ace, 7. This? No, wait. But it wouldn't have been. Alright. Well. For a long moment, they simply stood there looking at one another. Junpei looked around nervously, waiting for someone else to speak. No one did. Snake is dead. Then we're able to come through. Smells disgusting. Just like I said. The jacket, the gray pants. Snake was probably murdered. They grabbed him, they threw him in, and he made it through the only door he could, and he died. And we all split up to look for the parts for the roods, I think. Right after that's when we noticed he was gone. But that's absurd, says Ace. That would mean that 2 of us would have to kill him. 0 being on the ship with us? Of course. I think 0 is one of us. Well, that's possible. Whoever killed Snake is 0 and is therefore one of us. They actually complement each other pretty well. With a ton of primary information missing, obviously. Right, so we've now found 8 of the 9 doors. Behind one of these doors must be door number. Everyone keeps being mean to Lotus. Door 1 on the top deck, door 2 on the bottom deck, door 6. And I want to go top deck. My choice is door 1. And then I do a cheat to make sure that I can do it. And that's where I'm fucking going. Wait. Whew. We got a younger girl with us. It'll lower the average age. Right, June? June was at a loss for words. Lotus was not. That pig. You just wait and see. Her eyes were the eyes of a woman prepared to kill. Everyone is weirdly mean to Lotus, but I'm going through door number 1. And there's the dead. 5 plus 4 is 9, plus 1 is 10. 1 plus 0 is 1. This time I'm looking around, and I can see there was another door, different from the one they'd entered through. He took hold of the knob and easily, gently pulled it open. This is the wheelhouse. Close the door again. I don't think we learn anything interesting. But we are told to make our way out. Need that chart. Need that nautical table. I'm not a problem, but you're just a dick. What was that about? She was clearly suspicious, and with good reason. Junpei's eyes widened, and he held up his hands in a gesture of innocence. Oh, no, no, it's not like that. What's it like, then? I just wanted to hear the rest of that story. I didn't get a chance to ask you about it until now. What story? About the experiment. Remember, the one you started to tell me in the operating room? You said something about an experiment that happened here 9 years ago. Clover bit her lip. She stared down at the floor for several long moments. When she spoke, it was barely audible. I'm sorry, but I don't want to talk about that right now. I'm just not in the mood, okay? You understand, right? I keep thinking about my brother. I can't stop. I mean, who would do something like that to my brother? I can't forgive them. I'm not gonna let them get away with it. They're going to pay for it, I promise. So... Her shoulders were shaking. Drops of blood had sprung up on her lips where she was biting them. She wiped it off and looked up at Junpei, her eyes fierce and angry. Junpei, who do you think did it? Her voice was cold, scarcely above the whisper. Junpei gulped. Well, if what Seven said was right, then there would have to be at least 2 of them. You need at least 3 people to open the numbered doors, and if you subtract Snake, that means there were at least 2 other people. You're right. So what does that mean? Well, if we just look at the bracelet numbers, we should be able to figure it out. Who could have opened door 3 with Snake? Well, really, who and who, or who and who? You mean it could have been 4 people? Well, technically, it's possible. I don't know. That doesn't seem very likely. Why? I'll tell you later. Why don't we just assume it was only 2 other people for now? That was interesting, right? Got it. Let's do that. Then who do you think it could be? Junpei crossed his arms and thought. Snake's bracelet number was 2. Which 2 bracelet numbers added to 2 would give a digital root of 3? Wait, I did this before. I want to see. Well, no. Here. 2 plus 8 is 10, plus 7 is 17. 1 plus 7 is 8. It wouldn't be that. 10 plus 6 is 16. 1 plus 6 is 7. It wouldn't be that. 9 plus 6, 15. 1 plus 5 is whatever it is. It's 10 times 7, right? 2 plus 3 plus 7. 7 and 5. Yeah, 7 and 5 is 12. 1 and 2 is 3. 2 plus 3 plus 7 equals 12. 1 plus 2 equals 3. 3. Could it be? Were Santa and 7 the killers? What's wrong? Clover looked at Junpei and he looked back at her. There was no point in hiding it. He told her his conclusions. That's what I thought. She looked less surprised than he'd expected. Santa and 7. If it was 2 people, then that's the only combination that works. Wait a minute there. Don't you think it's a little too early to be jumping to conclusions? Well, all I said is that those 2 would have been able to open door 3 with your brother. There might be other possibilities. Well, what other possibilities? He didn't have an answer. He was ready to admit defeat when Clover spoke. Are you saying you think it was 3 or 4 people? I really don't think that's likely. Why? Can I borrow your pen and paper? Clover put her hand out expectantly. Junpei pulled out his pen and pad of paper and handed them to her. She opened the notebook and wrote down several simple addition problems. Eventually, she had 8, which provided a digital root of 3. See? Do you see? What's this? These are the combinations for 3 or 4 people. These 8 combinations are the only possible ones. I see. Junpei? Yeah? I can trust you, right? Of course. Why would you need to ask that? Really? Yeah. So then I should get rid of B, D, G, and H, right? Of course. Just cross them out. And you should take off yours too, the ones with 4. So, what does that leave? A and E. Snake, Ace, Santa, and June. Or Snake, Ace, Santa, 7, and Lotus. Wait. It can't be A. Why not? Because June's in that one. There's no way in hell she'd do something like that. Are you sure? I'd bet my life on it. Okay then. Then I can cross off A too, right? Yeah. Well, what have we got left? E. Snake plus Ace plus Santa and 7 and Lotus is 21. Everyone besides me, you, and June would be working together. Do you think that's likely? If there were 4 people working together, they wouldn't be very cautious. I don't think they'd try that hard to hide what they were doing if they outnumbered us, right? You do have a point. And besides, if Ace and 7 are working together, they could have easily gotten rid of me when I went to the shower room with them. But they didn't. They didn't even try anything. If they were the killers, why wouldn't they? Her voice was calm, but Junpei had only to look her in the eye to know it was a forced calm. There were tears forming at the corners of her eyes, and she was blinking furiously to keep them back. Perhaps by attempting an objective analysis of who might have killed her brother, she might be able to distance herself from the harsh reality of his death. The more she struggled to act unconcerned, the more Junpei felt his heart tighten. Okay. Yeah, well, that does make sense. It seems pretty unlikely that it was as many as 3 or 4 people. Yeah. Then that means there's a good chance it was Santa and 7. That's how it looks. But why would they do it? There was a moment of silence. I think I know. What is it? He laid his hand gently on her shoulder. He was close, so close to the answer. When Ace chose the worst possible moment to return. He raised a knowing eyebrow and then spoke. Have I interrupted something? What do you want? There was something I wanted to speak with you about, Junpei. Could you come with me for a moment? He turned on his heel and walked back toward the wheelhouse. Junpei looked over at Clover. He gave her a short nod, hoped that she would be willing to talk to him again later, and followed Ace. And now we're back in skip zone because we are... He's going to figure out that I cheated. He's going to say I don't care. And now I don't care. The helm, the steering wheel, excuse me. I mean, I need to do something with Pocket Watch first. Well, I'm gonna do it. I remember it from before. The handle came off. LOL. No foe, foe, dead. Stop. Huh? That's weird. No, something did happen. Yes, and there it is. Digital scoreboard, or list of arrivals. Ace changes the pocket watch. Match. And now we got it. Hey Clover, we unlocked the door. Now we can get out of this room. Oh, well, let's go then. Clover. Okay. You found it. Yeah, we're gonna go through here. There's something we find. We're the captain's quarters. And Zero said he was the captain. Well, we won't know if we don't open it. We're gonna look, and the first thing they saw was a man on the floor, covered in blood. Junpei felt his body seize up, his mouth went dry, and he felt very, very cold. The blood in his veins slowed to a crawl, and his heart tightened like a fist. This was the third time he'd seen the horror of death laid out before him. He didn't think it was something he could stand to see much more of. Still, he had begun to accept that whatever it was that he saw, whatever happened to him, was beyond his control, and whatever force controlled him was driven by a determination that he could not hope to match. A sense of helplessness, of desperation, washed over him. It left behind a feeling of utter emptiness that wormed its way through his body like acid. Then he realized. They had yet to check the man's pulse. Perhaps he was still alive. Fueled by that spark of hope, Junpei ran to the man's body and his heart fell. His fingers on the man's neck felt no pulse. His pupils had dilated and he wasn't breathing. Junpei lifted the man's already stiff body. There was a deep red wound on his chest. Junpei did not have to wonder long at what could have made such a wound. For lying next to the corpse was an axe. The entire blade of it was drenched in bright red blood. From the shape of the man's wound, there could be no doubt that it had been made by the axe. Junpei looked at the body again. A lake of blood stretched out around it. It was wearing the clothes of a ship's captain, although they were stained with blood. A captain. Did that mean that this man was Zero? On his left hand was a bracelet. The number on the bracelet was 0. It was only then that Junpei noticed the stench of blood that filled the room. He couldn't help but laugh. There was nothing else for him to say. It was too simple, too obvious, too straightforward. If there hadn't been a dead man on the floor, Junpei might have thought it was a joke. Okay. See if I remember all the pieces of this one. Medical chart. Which Why don't we just press one of these, like this one? Whoa. ZERO and a camera pointed at the password. Get it? Clover still thinks Zero is one of us. The letters that spell Zero on the TV screen, the captain's clothes he's got on, and of course the bracelet with the zero on it. It's too obvious. Look, look, this is Zero right here. This dead body is Zero. Doesn't that seem kind of funny to you? You're right. Only an idiot wouldn't see through something like that. No, that's not the point. I'm not trying to make fun of them for thinking a trick like this would work. I'm sure they didn't think it would work, which makes me wonder, why did they do it? I think this is a challenge. Challenge from the person who's really behind all of this. He's making fun of us. Don't you get it? If whoever killed this guy really wanted us to think this corpse was Zero, they'd never have put a bracelet on it. Walking about with a Zero bracelet would be like hanging a sign around your neck that said, I did it. Anyone with a brain would be able to see that this guy is supposed to look like everything Zero is supposed to be. Just like we did. The killer must have known we wouldn't think he was Zero and put the bracelet on him anyway. Do you know why? Why? Like I said, he's mocking us. Too bad, suckers, this isn't Zero. It's the same bad joke a lot of criminals like to play. They'll just sit back and watch people run in circles. Look, here I am. What's wrong, guys? Come on, catch me if you can. That's really twisted, but it almost seems kind of childish. Yeah, you're right. It's really childish. It's like it's just a game to whoever this person is. That's what seems funny to me. Junpei bent down next to the corpse. Alright, let's get back to the point. Who killed this man? I don't know. And what's this guy's deal? Who is he? How would I know that? If I knew anything, I would have told you. You have no idea who he is. Why would I? Junpei sat back on his haunches and thought. We should check and see if he's got anything on him that might tell us who he is. Give me a hand here, Clover. What? We've got to flip him over. How else are we going to search his pockets? Clover didn't move. Junpei had no choice but to move the body on his own. He grabbed hold of an area not completely covered in blood and shoved. It took a moment, but eventually Junpei felt the man's bulk begin to shift. But just as it did, something fell from the man's left wrist. The bracelet with Zero on the face. This is when we remember how to remove the bracelets. Either escape or die. And this man, he's dead, isn't he? Huh? No, it's just... I guess I didn't really think about it until right now. If his bracelet's off, that means he's dead. Well, it's pretty obvious that he's dead. You don't really need to look at his bracelet to figure out that he's dead. Yeah, I guess you're right. It's pretty obvious. He looks a lot better than the other bodies we've seen, though, you know? I mean, if there wasn't all this blood, he'd almost look like he was still alive. I mean, I know it's kind of a messed up thing to say, but he kind of has it better, you know? Dying from a bomb going off inside you? I mean, that's just... Some of Snake's bones went right through his skin. I think the explosion must have thrown him against a wall or something. There was a broken bone just sticking out of his left arm. Suddenly, Junpei realized what he was saying. How could he have been so cruel? He clapped his hands over his mouth. But it was already too late. He turned to look at Clover. She was glaring at him furiously. What did you just say? Her words sounded cold. He knew an apology could hardly atone for what he'd done, but he tried anyway. Oh man, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I really don't know what I was thinking. I mean, no. That's not what I'm talking about. What did you say about his arm? Arm? Yes, his left arm? You said it, didn't you? Well, yeah, I did, but, I mean, didn't you see it too? Of course not! I could barely look at him. Clover took a quick, deep breath. Are you sure it was his left arm? Junpei thought back. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. And he had a broken bone, right? What the hell are you getting at here? Just shut up and answer me. She shoved her face closer to his. He could see the fire in her eyes. Junpei winced and swallowed. Yeah, he did. It was pretty bad, too. The bone was sticking out of the arm. No sooner were the words out of his mouth than Clover's expression changed. Suddenly, she was crying. Junpei wasn't sure what to do. Thank you. It was close to the last thing he had expected to hear. Junpei had no idea what had just happened. He didn't think he'd done anything worthy of thanks, and he couldn't understand why she would have chosen that moment to begin crying. So he simply stood there, confused. Thank you, Junpei. She thanked him again, and then something even stranger happened. Clover threw herself into Junpei's surprised arms. Hey, what's going on with you? I'm sorry, it's just... I'm so happy. Why? The body in the shower room. It isn't his. It isn't my brother. Huh? It's not Snake. Why on earth would you think that? Because his left arm is... She stopped herself. I'm sorry. I really shouldn't be talking about this. Junpei decided it would be prudent not to press her for any more information. If she did not wish to tell him, she certainly had a reason for doing so. Perhaps more importantly, however, if Clover was so certain, then she was likely right. That meant that the body in the shower room wasn't Snake. It wasn't much, but that knowledge lifted some of the weight from Junpei's heart. He's still alive. I'm so happy. Tears shone in her eyes. Those tears melted Junpei's heart. As she cried, she had pushed herself up against his chest like a child. Junpei put his arms around her and held her tight. Junpei, you were right. No matter what happens, you can never lose hope. You have to remember that the most important, and that's to have faith and to have love. And if you can remember all of those, that'll bring you good luck. Clover reached into her pocket and pulled something out. It was a laminated bookmark with a 4-leaf clover. I only made it here because you gave me this. I was suspicious of everybody, and I was angry and miserable. But because I had this 4-leaf clover, because of what you said to me, Junpei hadn't thought his words would have had such an effect on her. Her words were making him feel a little awkward. Thank you so much, Junpei. She looked up at him. Said, He scratched his nose and pretended to notice something interesting somewhere else in the room. If you really want to thank somebody, you should be thanking Santa. Santa? Why? Well, he was the one who gave me that thing. And the words for each leaf? I got that from him too. Then suddenly, Clover broke away from Junpei. Huh? He looked confused. He hadn't thought she'd react that poorly. Clover began to pace across the room. To the left, to the right, to the left, and then she stopped. Did Santa really tell you those things? Her eyes were serious, but not angry. Yeah, he did. Did I say something wrong? Oh, no, not at all. In fact, this could be really good news. I think. You think? Santa knew about the words and the clover. The only people who should know about that are the other subjects. Subjects? The other people who were in the experiment 9 years ago with my brother and me. But he's blind. And I was part of the Nevada test group. So neither of us would be able to recognize the faces of the people who were on this boat. Whoa. Time out. Junpei held up his hands. He took a deep breath and let it out. Let's just calm down for a second, okay? Start from the top. Don't start with the end and then jump to the middle. You gotta start at 1 and then move to 2, 3, and 4, and so on. If you don't tell me stuff in the right order, I'm never gonna be able to figure it out. I bet we'll be able to figure it out, Junpei. I'll be here to help you. Clover nodded. Alright, let's start with this experiment. What happened on this boat 9 years ago? Do you know about morphogenetic fields? He did. And the realization sent chills down Junpei's spine. Alright, how about this? Theory of the telepathic mechanism? Junpei recounted what Lotus had told him earlier. Clover nodded. Telepathy, huh? Well, that's not really it, but I suppose it's similar. So they were testing telepathy on this ship. Yeah, I guess so. So what exactly did they have you guys do? The same thing that we're doing now. Exactly the same thing. What? The nonary game. 9 people were put on this boat, and 9 others were put in the building in Nevada. And the game started. Junpei grabbed the sides of his head. Look, I'm sorry, but I don't get it. A brief aside, I think that the headline said 16 kids had gone missing. What do the nonary games and some telepathy experiment have to do with each other? Clover bit her lip. She blinked back sudden tears. What had happened to her in Nevada? The ability to access a morphogenetic field is affected by a couple of things. The first is epiphany, and the other is danger. You know how sometimes when you're up against a really tough problem and then the answer just kind of pops into your head? That's an epiphany. And what you learn from the epiphany can be transmitted with telepathy. When you add danger to that equation, then it gets easier to transmit that information over telepathy. Remember the rats? So you're saying the nonary game was supposed to introduce that element of danger? Yeah, but it couldn't be just any old danger. It had to be life and death. And someone did actually die. A girl. Junpei felt the sudden grip of despair in his heart. Something deep and distant and powerful squeezed, and for a moment he felt very, very empty and alone. She was on the boat with my brother. I was in Nevada, so I never met her, but I did hear her name. Her name was... The sound of the door opening was like a gunshot. Junpei spun around. Oh, my apologies. Have I expertly ruined an explanation again? I seem to have disturbed you. Ace? You two must have strong stomachs. I can't imagine how you could stay in this room for so long. Ace glanced down at the floor, at the corpse covered in blood. At any rate, Junpei, would you be so kind as to come and help me with something? I'm having a little trouble, and I could really use your assistance. Come on, it'll only take a moment. With that, he turned and walked back toward the communications office. Clover waited until he was out of sight, then spoke. I didn't want Ace to hear us. We can talk about this later. Huh? Hey, wait! Clover ignored him. From outside, Junpei could hear Ace calling it's time to get back to escaping the room. Blank piece of paper. Locked drawer. All screwdrivers. Thing of ink. Alright. Unfortunately, I know it's not that. Because O is dot dot dot. Unlock the drawer. Means I can now open it and get the thing. All ice. And Egyptian hieroglyphs that we can't read. Oh, and the Uranus thing. Junpei blinked. He began to explain his theory to Ace. Then I had to tell Ace about Ice 9, Alice, and Lord Gordain. And you think that he hid her in a small room beyond the library at the bottom deck? I mean, I guess so. Now we're talking about cryogenics. And its potential use for in order to enter the captain's quarters, one must first open door 1. That door that requires the Earth key prevented us from accessing door 1. Who was it that opened that door? Santa and Lotus. Right. Clearly the two of them could not have opened door 1 or any other door for that matter. There were only 2 of them. Nobody could have done this. Wouldn't it make sense if the killer was someone who'd been on the ship for some time? Someone like Alice, who might have learned about secret passage. I don't have time to think about that. Digits, let's give it a shot. C E R O. Okay. I'm gonna be in Skip Town for a little while and then I'm gonna come out of it. We're getting close. Clover has something in her pocket. What is it? Oh, this is a note. Yeah, I found it in the pocket of the guy with the captain's clothes. It said something about the darkness of the sinister hand or something. The hell? Let me see it. But Junpei wasn't going to get to see it. From the other end of the hall, he heard Ace's voice. The worst. What are you two doing? Hurry up. Well, we won't find out about that. There's a note. And Ace has run ahead. But not just Ace. Santa, June, Seven, and Lotus as well. Junpei and Clover glanced at each other and hurried down the stairs. They reached B deck at the same time. Jumpy! Clover! June's face was excited. Something had happened. I know what's happened. They've found door 9. And that's not all. We go to the elevator, we go down. And then we find this. And then over here. A large double door, powerful styling. A door and a 9. There was another one. I'm pretty sure there aren't any rooms where we just had to go with our best guess and leave it to the instinct to solve the puzzle. Do you really think that at the very end of the game, Zero's going to suddenly throw in something that depends entirely on luck? Then you're saying there's some sort of hint in this room. No, I don't think there's a hint anywhere in here. I searched it very well when I was in here before. I didn't find anything that might have been a hint, though. Well then, that means... Yeah, both of these are the right door. I mean, if you think about it, Zero never actually said there was only one door with a 9 on it. The exit is hidden, but it is there. Seek the exit, seek the door that carries a 9. Junpei began to mutter to himself. So there are 2 number 9 doors if we split up, right? That's not gonna work. Junpei blinked and looked up at Clover. She held out her hand. You've got a notebook and pen, right? Can I borrow that? Slightly confused, he pulled them out and handed them to her. Look at this. Clover opened the notebook to a blank page and set it down on the desk. Everyone else gathered around her and watched as she wrote down a series of numbers. You get it? The numbers on the top are all the combinations with digital roots of 9. The numbers on the bottom are the people who don't fit. There's only 8 possibilities if we split up into 2 groups of 3 or 4 people. So, if 3 people go through the door, then 4 are left behind. If 4 go through, then 3 are left behind, right? Clover nodded almost as if she were pleased with herself for solving a difficult math problem. The room went very quiet. Silence lay across everyone like a thick, heavy blanket. No one spoke. Their faces were blank. Desperate for something else to look at, Junpei turned his eyes to the room around him. As he did, he began to wonder, what was it? The walls were covered with candles. The wavering flame made the shadows of Junpei and his companions look as though they were dancing. 2 rows of wooden pews filled most of the room. Between them was a strip of rich red carpet. The carpet ran straight through the room, ending at the door that pointed to the stern of the boat, the other end of the carpet. An altar? It was a recessed space set into the wall between the other 2 doors. Sitting on a raised section of the altar was a coffin. Coffin. A coffin. Coffin. No, it couldn't possibly be. But if it wasn't, then whose body occupied it? That was as far as Junpei wanted to pursue that line of thought. He decided not to think about the coffin for the time being. At that moment, 7 spoke. There was an edge of humor to his voice, but it was forced. Okay, I give up. I give up. I figured if we sat around here long enough, someone would volunteer, but guess nobody's got the guts to do it. Junpei didn't understand, and he wasn't the only one. What? You guys didn't figure it out yet? Huh? Fine. Let me enlighten you. Clover was mostly right with her little explanation earlier, but she missed something. She wasn't really wrong, she just... screw it. Let me just write it out. 7 snatched up the notebook and began to write in it. Everyone else clustered around him, desperate for a look. You're trying to leave with a group of 3 and a group of 4 and get everybody out. Clover's right. There's another way. Only one combination, though. You split us up into groups of 3, 3, and 1. You can make this combination. Wait, this means... Don't get me wrong here. I'm not trying to copy Ace or anything like that. Even if he hadn't been the hero back in the big hospital room, I'd still be saying the same thing. The same thing? Are you saying? Yeah, I am. I'll stay behind. Hmm? 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 Why are you acting so heroic all of a sudden? You some kind of idiot? Lotus was the first to speak. That in itself was a little strange. She'd reacted much differently when Ace had volunteered. I'm completely against this. I'll be goddamned if I'm going to have to owe you for getting out of here. The rest of them began to speak all at once. I'm against it too. I don't want to leave Ace behind, and I don't want to leave you either. I don't like that idea. There's gotta be other options. I disagree as well. I can't say I care much for you being the hero. Finally, they quieted down and Junpei looked at 7. Well, there you go, 7. Proposal denied. Clover's right. There's got to be a better way than this. Doesn't make any sense. He was doing his best to pretend they were making a foolish decision, but Junpei could see the twinkling of water at the corners of Seven's eyes. That was when Santa spoke. Well, hold on a minute. I haven't said anything yet. Until then, Junpei hadn't realized that Santa had stayed quiet for the whole discussion of Seven's fate. Something in his voice made Junpei uncomfortable. Are you agreeing? You want to leave him here? Santa shook his head. Nah, I'm against it. I don't want to leave Seven here alone. Then I don't see how it matters. I said alone. Huh? I said I don't want to leave Seven alone. There was a dull shine in Santa's eyes. They were cold and hard. Junpei felt himself shiver. What the hell are you... What, you don't get it? I can't leave just one person. I need 2 more. 3 people, including 7. I'll be leaving behind 3 people. That's my proposal. No. Those are my orders. What do you mean, orders? What in the hell makes you think you can order us around? Who the hell's gonna listen to you? You all will. In 3 seconds, you won't have a choice. What? 3, 2, 1. Santa was so fast, Junpei could barely see him. When he moved, it was almost like watching a dance. His feet moving like lightning. He spun and... he had June. See? I told you. His lips curled in a cruel, mocking smile. A shudder traveled the length of Junpei's spine. His chest froze and he could feel his breath go stale in his lungs. Nothing made sense. Junpei felt as though his head were about to explode. Santa's sudden change in attitude, saying that he needed 2 more, the gun in his right hand, a revolver? Santa had grabbed June from behind and pressed what Junpei's shaken brain identified as a revolver roughly against her temple. What was he doing with a gun? Where on earth had Santa possibly found a gun? Junpei's questions roared in his mind, but his mouth refused to ask them. Seven spoke, almost as though he had sensed Junpei's confusion. The gun's from the other room. What room? One of the rooms behind door 6. Should have known he was going to do this. I should have taken the gun. Well, too late now, fat ass. Damn it. A mixture of fury and frustration twisted Seven's face, and he glared at Santa. Santa, for his part, didn't so much as flinch. The corner of his lips twitched into a slightly wider smile. Then the smile faded, and he began to move. He walked backward, dragging June with him. Before long, his back was resting against the door. On the wall next to him was the red. He put his hand on the scanner panel quickly, and then forced June to do the same. Now, time for you to start following my orders. Ace, Lotus, congratulations. I've chosen you to come with me. Put your hands on the red. 3 and 1 and 6 and 8 is 18. That was what Santa had meant when he said he needed 2 more. Hey, you deaf? I gave you an order. Santa's eyes narrowed to slits. He glared at Ace and Lotus. They stayed frozen, like deer caught in the headlights of an oncoming car. Right. Fine. I didn't want to waste any bullets, but you guys just don't get it. No sooner were the words out of Santa's mouth than his hand twitched. And the gun roared. A section of the floor exploded, scattering wooden splinters across the floor. A thin plume of smoke snaked out of the hole in the floor. There could be no doubt that the gun was real and worked. But why? Santa, why are you... Clover's voice spoke of betrayal and disbelief. Santa, I thought... I thought you were one of us. I thought we were friends. What? You knew about the leaf word and the four-leaf clover. Santa's cheek twitched almost imperceptibly. What the hell is that shit? Got no idea. You're lying. Shut up. Just shut up, you stupid bitch. You want me to put a bullet in your fucking head? Flecks of spit flew from Santa's mouth, his face twisted with rage. Clover recoiled, her eyes wide. When she spoke, her voice was very small. Santa. He snorted, then shook his head vigorously and turned to face Ace and Lotus. All right, assholes, what are you still standing there for? Get over here and scan those bracelets. I don't have all day. Or what's the matter? Your hearing starting to go? Going senile, maybe? Ace and Lotus still didn't move. It almost seemed as if they couldn't move. June's face was pale behind Santa's arm. Her eyes were wild and her chest heaved with every quick breath, like an animal cornered by a predator. Junpei's mind worked furiously. What were they going to do? Then he realized something. There was nothing they needed to do. There was nothing to debate. June's safety was the first priority. That much was obvious. Doing as Santa had commanded meant that she would be safe from at least two threats. She wouldn't be shot, and she would leave the ship alive along with Santa, Ace, and Lotus. There was only one thing for Junpei to do. He turned to Ace and Lotus. Please, go. Huh? But, Jumpy, what are you saying? If you stay here, you're going to be stuck, Jumpy. And so will Clover and Seven. I know. But you don't need to worry about us. We'll figure something out. Right, Seven? Right. You just leave it to us. It's gonna piss me off to do what Santa says, but... Don't worry about me either. There's still something I have to take care of. But, no. You can't. Ace, Lotus, don't do it. Don't worry about me, please. June was almost crying. Junpei walked around behind Ace and Lotus. Without a word, he laid a hand on each of their backs and gently pushed them forward. They almost stumbled, then righted themselves and took another step. And then another. They turned around, and Junpei nodded. Ace and Lotus turned around again and walked slowly toward the door where Santa was waiting for them. After what seemed like an eternity, they stopped in front of the door marked 9. Santa smiled. Alright, now let's get those hands on the scanner panel. What's the hold up? What, you think I'm fucking around here? I don't give a shit about this girl. The red doesn't need a person, you know. All I need is the bracelet. You get it? Good. Now put your fucking hands on the scanner. I'm not gonna say it again. He shoved the revolver harder against June's head and she winced. Fine. Ace sighed, defeated, and placed his hand on the scanner panel. Lotus went next. She glared at Santa and slammed her hand onto the scanner panel. The fourth asterisk blinked on. Good job. Now, Lotus, pull that lever. As soon as the door opens, you get your ass in there. Try anything stupid and you know what happens, right? Junpei could almost hear Lotus's teeth grind. The door slid open. Door number 9 opened at last. It opened with a low, powerful rumble, a drum roll to welcome the chosen few. All right, go. Lotus and Ace walked through the door, their eyes furious but defeated. Santa waited until they were all the way inside, then hauled himself and June across the threshold as well. 6, 7, 8, 9. After exactly 9 seconds, the door swung shut. The gust of air it created caused the candles on the altar to flicker and die. The room fell silent. Junpei, Clover, and Seven had been left behind. Clover looked down at her hand and traced with her finger the faint blue veins that crisscrossed them. Seven shoved his arms into the front of his overalls and scratched his stomach. No one spoke. Silence made the air feel thick and oppressive. Desperate for something, anything, to occupy his mind, Junpei walked to the larger of the two 9DOORS. He stood in front of it and looked at the red. It read, "Engaged." He moved to the smaller door. The red read, "Vacant." The digital root of the remaining people was 7. There was no possible way for them to open a door with 9 on it. Junpei touched the surface of the door. He thought about Akane Kurashiki. Was she safe? That was all that mattered to him. If she was alive, if she had escaped this horrible boat, that was what Junpei prayed for. 7 came up next to him. He pulled off his hat, scratched his head, and sighed. "So, what do you want to do, Junpei?" "What do you mean, what do I want to do? What can we do?" 7 opened his mouth to respond when a noise echoed through the room. Someone was pounding on something vigorously. It wasn't mechanical, it was certainly human. Junpei and 7 looked at one another. "What the hell is that?" "Shh! Quiet!" Clover motioned to 7 to be quiet. She put one finger to her lips and closed her eyes in concentration. The three of them listened, trying to determine where the sound was coming from. Where was it coming from? Could it be? "Hey, I think it's coming from this coffin." "You're right. Let's open it." "But how?" "What are those muscles for? For show?" "You're telling me to force it open?" "Just shut up and try." Junpei and 7 grabbed hold of the coffin. They tried to get a good grip with what little purchase they could find and pulled with all of their strength. They screamed. "Damn it! Man, it won't even budge." There was some sort of keypad attached to the coffin. Its purpose would not have been difficult to determine. Their eyes were almost immediately drawn to it. "Not another one." "Yeah, looks like it." "Do you think we have to put in the right password or it won't open?" "I think so." The noise wasn't stopping. In fact, it was getting louder. They had no idea who was in the coffin, but they wanted out, and they wanted out now. They had no idea what they were supposed to do. Without a passcode, it didn't seem like there was a lot they could do. They couldn't even tell how many numbers the passcode needed to be. "Isn't there a hint somewhere?" "Well, let's look for one." Unfortunately, there didn't seem to be anything near the coffin. Clover ran to examine the pews and 7 investigated the desk, but they turned up nothing. The sound still wouldn't stop. It wasn't a noise that belonged in that room. What was the passcode? What was Junpei supposed to do? How was he supposed to figure it out? He needed something. The world blinked. Suddenly, there was a voice inside of Junpei's head. Truth had gone, truth had gone, and truth had gone. Ah, now truth is asleep in the darkness of the sinister hand. What? What the hell was that? That voice? Junpei was utterly and completely baffled. This is not how this went last time. And that means it's time to save. Because I'm not going to make the same mistake. This ending is huge. I'm very excited. Very excited. But unfortunately, I would like to quit. Till next time, microphone.